In The World Beyond Your Head by Matthew Crawford, he writes that there's a tension between freedom and structure. And in skilled practitioners, there becomes clarity between that tension, or between those opposing forces. And I think this is seen in basketball. So, you have on one end, you have the structure of, a very structured set play where the coach kind of constrains the behavior by demanding, a certain execution and only attempting certain shots. And then on the other end, you kind of have the freedom of maybe like a pickup basketball game where players don't know each other. There's really no organization, no principles upon which, the players are playing. They're just kind of playing free and more or less doing whatever they want. And then in between, you have kind of the skilled teams that are able to balance the structure with the freedom. So a team such as the Warriors, let's say, where they definitely have principles upon which they're basing their play. They're always playing together. They can read what their teammates are doing because of these principles and because they have certain actions that they tend to go to. But within those actions and within those principles, players are making individual choices and individual decisions that lead to the next play or the next action. And so the players have that individual freedom, so they don't run a play in the same way that a lot of coaches at the youth or high school levels teach plays, which is we need to go A to B, B to C, C to D, and then we're going to take shot E. And we don't want any deviation from that play. This is exactly what you have to do. So in that respect, there's no decision making and there's no individual freedom for those players. And oftentimes when a player does exhibit some form of individual freedom and breaks off from the play, that player is removed from the game. On the other end, of course, like I said, when there's complete freedom and players aren't sure, what they're doing. When I play a pickup game with players who I've never played before, you see, I start to drive to the basket and somebody runs in my way, or I see a player who's open, I start to pass him the ball, but he's not even looking for the ball because he doesn't realize that he's open and that I can actually make that pass, let's say. So we have lots of freedom to choose whatever we want to do, but we don't have that togetherness that you get when you play together with players and when you play with some form of principles. So when I play pickup games with guys who I've been friends with since high school, we do things like when somebody dribbles towards the baseline, I drift to the corner and they can make that outlet pass because that's kind of a basic principle, and we can expect that he's going to look towards me and I'm going to be in the right place. And then when you take that to a whole nother level and you put that, those kind of principles and that kind of familiarity and togetherness, with talent like the Warriors, that's when you have players, and really exciting and really good basketball to watch. So it starts with that fundamental understanding, of basic actions and how to, use basic actions, the teamwork, the willingness to make the extra pass. So players are always engaged and always moving to the right spots because they anticipate that a teammate will make the pass. Whereas if you're, playing with more selfish players, you may not make the right move because, you don't anticipate getting the ball. Oftentimes when I'm playing with bad players in pickup games, sometimes, I won't even cross half court because I know that a certain player has the ball, he's going to shoot it. So there's no sense trying to get in the right position to bail him out if he gets in trouble because he's just going to shoot it anyway. So what's the point? Whereas if you're playing, again, the Warriors, you know that if Klay Thompson's wide open, Curry will pass up a good shot to give Klay Thompson a great shot. And so Klay has that incentive to move into the right position. So again, it's the basic fundamental understanding the actions, the togetherness, the willingness to make that pass, and then the principles upon which they're playing. So they can balance that structure of knowing what each other's going to do and okay, we're going to run an on-ball screen, or we're going to, set a double screen or a flare screen or something like that. So there is some organization, there's some principles on which they're playing, but each player has individual freedom to make choices and make decisions out of those actions and out of those principles and out of that structure. So there's the balance between the freedom and the structure, and they do it very, very well. And ultimately, that to me is how we need to strive to teach players. so that players can understand, having structure and using certain actions that are going to afford certain possibilities for a team and create certain shots, but then also having the individual decision making, so that players aren't just going from point to point running a certain play, but they have the freedom to make the best decision in that situation, not just the next decision. And I think that's an important distinction when we're teaching plays to players or teaching structure to players, is that it's not about making the next in a series of decisions. It's about making the best decision at any given time, at any given point within that progression of a play. So if it's supposed to be like more of a flex offense, but your defensive player isn't paying attention, instead of waiting for that cutter to cut across and use the flex screen, we'll drive to the basket because you're wide open. And that's the kind of freedom of decision making the players need to be empowered to use, so that they can maximize their ability, and so also they can learn to really play the game and not just run the coach's plays. And again, I think that's an important distinction that enables players to more fully develop their intelligence on the court when they're able to make those decisions and not be punished by being removed from a game because they didn't follow the coach's directions. So again, the best players have this clarity within that tension between the structure and the freedom, and I think at all other levels we're trying to develop that clarity and teach players how to play with some structure, but how to retain that individual freedom or that individual ability to make decisions within an offensive situation.